Trigger warning. Today's episode will be speaking extensively about suicide. The tone of this podcast, as you all know, is comedic, and so we'll be laughing and joking about the topic. That doesn't mean we don't take it seriously. If you or a loved one have had suicidal thoughts, please dial 988 on your cell phone for the suicide hotline. We love you. Welcome to Bad Shit, a frank and funny look at living with mental illness.
While we'll touch on several illnesses, Batshit is focused on those along the spectrum of bipolar disorders. I'm your host, Adam.
I'm your other host, Brad.
And we're both bipolar. So, strap in, and let's see how batshit we really are.
Spoiler alert, pretty damn bad shit. And you're about to find out how bad shit.
How batshit are we,
Because
Brad?
I lied to Adam about the topic of this first episode so
Wait,
that we
what?
could get his honest reaction here.
Oh, crap. What?
We're going to talk about suicide.
Oh.
And the reason for that is I've been having suicidal thoughts.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I did not know this was the topic for tonight, nor did I know you were having those thoughts.
I blindsided him.
Yeah, seriously, you fuckhead. I'm sorry about that, man.
Yeah, I don't know if it's my medication or what, because it coincides with I upped my lamotrigine, and then my Abilify got upped.
Okay.
And it was around that time that I started having little episodes where I was legitimately thinking that everybody would be better off if I was gone.
Now, have you had thoughts like this before?
No. I had what they call passive suicidal ideation.
What's that?
That's where you're like, man, I wish I could just like go to sleep tonight and not wake up. Or,
Oh,
like,
sure, yeah.
You know, I'm
yeah.
crossing the street tomorrow, and God, maybe a bus will hit me.
Yeah, I mean,
You know.
if you're an American, I think you've had that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've all had those.
Yeah.
Let's be
That's
honest.
called working a 9 to 5.
Right. It's called living in 2023.
But this was the first time where I actually started feeling like I was a weight dragging everyone in my life down, and that if I was gone, everybody would be better. Specifically my kids. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, because right now, when I'm in a normal state,
Sure.
when I'm baseline me, I said the normal thing once to my friend Mars, and she was like, normal? I was like, all right, baseline.
Normal for me.
Yeah. Well, I think for her it was more like that's like bad self-talk.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Don't talk down about yourself type of thing.
Right.
Got it.
So I've started trying to use the term baseline me.
Okay.
When I'm baseline me, I realize that's idiotic thinking. You know, like how much would that fuck up my kids?
Oh, it screw them up royally. It would
Right.
screw up everyone in your life.
Right.
I mean, I don't think, it's interesting because I haven't had suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
But I imagine the people who have had them, you possibly included, if the main thought is my life or people's lives would be better off without me in it, like that's never going to be true. Like that's
Yeah.
never going to be true. It doesn't matter who you are out there. You make someone's lives better. I don't know who that is. That could be your kids. Mm-hmm. It could be your friends.
The mailman.
The mailman. That mailman. I mean, not all mailmen get to take Brad's virginity. Let me tell you that. No, but for real, you make someone's life better. It may not even be the person you want to make their life better. You know what I mean?
You're accidentally making that asshole's life
Yeah,
better.
maybe that asshole gets through his day because he gets to be an asshole to you.
Yeah.
You ever think about that? No, you didn't. You selfish. No, but for real, like.
Well, and that's the thing that I think it's difficult for people to understand. Like I've mentioned this offhandedly to a couple of other friends that I've had, suicidal ideation, and they just don't get it. They're like, "But you seem fine."
Oh.
And it's like,
Well, so
yeah, I seem fine now. And then at night when I'm by myself and I'm trying to take a hot bath to like relax and deal with the anxiety, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, what if I just downed a bunch of sleeping pills right now? You know? And I've walked through the entire process in my head. Is like, I wouldn't want anybody finding my body, so I'd leave a note on the bathroom door shut the shower, leave another note that's like, just call 911.
Right.
You know, I've gone to the extent of writing suicide notes and leaving them in the drafts folder of my email.
Oh.
Oh, now that we're a few minutes in and we've been talking about this a lot, I guess trigger warning?
I'll start the whole episode with that. I will pre-record a trigger warning for that. And I will reiterate right now that we are not condoning suicide. We are not advising suicide. We're not going to tell you the best way to commit suicide because that shit's on the internet, man. People have whole forums on Reddit about that.
I had a friend in high school. Her mom killed herself. She bought a book on the best way to do it.
Oh, my God. Really?
Yeah.
A book?
Yeah. That kind of walk through like not only here's the easiest way to do it for yourself, but this is going to be easier on the people that find you.
Oh, man.
You know,
God damn it.
Etc. Yeah, no, it's rough. Although trigger warning wise, I will say you assholes clicked on an episode that's going to be titled Suicide. So you probably knew what you were getting into.
I wonder what this one's about. It's probably about the Suicide Squad movie. I'm going to just listen to that on this bipolar podcast. I'm sure none of our fans sound like that. But,
we ended up having Margot Robbie on, and she had no idea what we were going to talk about.
I'm not here to promote Suicide Squad 3. Oh, crap. Birds of Prey 2, whatever it was. So let me go back to what you said. The people who question it, they're like, I don't get it, right?
Yeah, because they don't understand that that's just a state you slip into.
Right.
Like, that's not your normal thinking.
So what they're saying is you seem fine. Like, you don't seem like you're suicidal.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying. Okay.
But how many people who kill themselves do?
Right. I mean,
you hear that all the time.
Yeah.
Like he was just so fun and filled with life and laughter, and you know, then he offed himself.
Well, highs and lows, man. You don't let anybody see the lows, right? Or it's really that's when you're really low. You don't want to see anybody, so no one sees them.
Yeah.
You know, people will say, "Man, Adam's kind of sad or grumpy." I'm like, "This is not sad and depressed." Because if I was sad and depressed, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I'd be at home under the covers.
Yeah. I spend so much time in bed.
Yeah.
Lately, I'm sleeping. I'm going to bed about 9:30 at night, and I'm staying in bed until about 9:30 in the morning.
Wow.
And then at least 2 other points during the day, I'll go lay in bed for 30 minutes to an hour.
Not sleeping.
Not sleeping.
No.
That's just the only place I want to be.
Yeah.
I just lay and kind of like probably think about things I shouldn't. Yeah, I don't know. And I've got the anhedonias back like in full force. There's just nothing I want to do, so I just lay in bed.
Sure.
I just like count down the hours every day. And it's like, well, maybe when tomorrow starts, something good will happen. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And so you mentioned it coincided with your medication.
It was my medication. Well,
again, this isn't us. I'm not saying it's the medication. I'm just asking.
All these medications. So from what I've read, this is incredibly rare. I don't want to scare anyone off from taking medication. It's incredibly rare. And if it happens, you want to talk to your healthcare provider about it. But all of them list suicidal thoughts as a possible side effect.
There's some stool movers that
say
suicidal thoughts.
Yeah, I think everybody puts it on there as a just in case.
Well,
it's like if somebody's taking this and they kill themselves, we don't want to get sued, whether we had anything to do with it or not.
Well, because they have to. Like if anyone in their test group has a heart attack, commits suicide.
If I killed myself and I left in the note that like I offed myself because of Lexapro.
Well, then
there's a court case.
Now there's a court case, right?
You know?
Right. So it's
but it coincided with that. There's all these money problems we talked about on our check-in episode. I've been out of work. The strikes have just decimated the economy.
Yeah, the industry out here is real rough.
Yeah. And I've taken the full brunt of that. I'm so behind on bills, having like legal issues, relationship problems, like you name it, it all hits at once. And any one of these things would not drag me down.
Right.
I'd be like, that's life, and I'd roll with it. It's when they all pile on top of each other.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
And you just feel like, God damn it, like nothing's going right. Nothing will go right. I feel overwhelmed, and I feel like this is how things are always going to be. And that's when I start thinking, would my kids' lives be better if I wasn't here?
Well,
if I wasn't dragging them down.
Okay. Yeah. I understand that thought process, but at the same time, like what you just described, like all of that shit, like a relationship issue, a money issue, they do affect, for instance, your family, right? But it's still mostly your issue. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's coming at you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's all me. It's all internal. And like I said, any one of them on their own. Like I'd never in my life before had serious suicidal thoughts.
Sure.
I'd had passive suicidal ideation, like we talked about. Like, man, wouldn't it be great if like I got mauled by a bear?
Yeah. Yeah, if I just let go of the wheel, that'd be great.
Yeah. But I'd never had suicidal thoughts until recently, and
Did it scare you? Like obviously, when you're in the moment, it doesn't scare you. But coming out of it, like when you're back,
you
to
know what it
baseline
feels
breath,
like to me? It feels like I'm coming up with a plan C.
a plan C.
Yeah, that's how it feels. Like even when I come out of it, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to do this, this, and this to make things better. But that's my backup plan.
Huh?
Like that's the feeling, which is a little freaky.
Yeah.
I talked to my therapist about it this week. My therapist took me through a questionnaire and said that I'm high risk.
Okay.
And recommended that the next time I have a thought like that, I go to the ER.
Okay, so they didn't
I'm
talk
at high
about you getting not recommitted, institutionalized. They didn't talk about that.
They said I should seriously consider it.
Okay. I mean, are you?
Well, so I haven't in a couple of days had any suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
Getting committed is expensive.
Sure. So's the ER.
Yeah, takes me away from my kids, takes me away from job hunts.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of white knuckling it at the moment. But like I said, I haven't had those thoughts in a couple of days. And it's just, again, it's just being overwhelmed with everything. Like,
yeah.
And that there's nothing that I have that takes my mind off being overwhelmed. You know, like I can't sit anymore and be like, God damn, this job and money issues, like it's killing me. Like, well, let me have a good conversation with my significant other because, that'll make me feel better. Well, nope, because now there's a problem there. It's just like it's a cascade of events where it's like I don't see the good at the moment. And it's not that any one of these things would trigger it. Like I'm not the type of personality that's like, oh, I'm having relationship problems. I'm going to listen to emo music and slip my wrists.
Right.
Like that's not me. I'm more of the like, fuck it.
Yeah.
But again, it's the pile-on effect.
Yeah. There's only so much you can bear and so much you can take.
Yeah. Simultaneously.
Yeah. And that's true for anybody.
Please like, subscribe, and share it on social media. If you have someone you think may need to hear it, we encourage you to share it with them and to start your own conversation about mental health.
Hey friends, Brad and I started Batshit because we needed someone to talk to about our bipolar. So when looking for a sponsor, BetterHelp was the obvious choice. BetterHelp provides access to therapists via text, via Zoom, via email, via phone call, 24 hours, 7 days a week. I don't need to tell anyone how broken the American healthcare system is, especially when it comes to mental illness. But the beautiful thing about BetterHelp is that they'll work with you. Go to www.betterhelp.com/batshit. You'll get 10% off for the first month, and you'll get someone to talk to right now. If you need to talk to someone, do it. Please. We love you. Harking back to part of what this podcast is about, it's like men don't talk about being overwhelmed. We don't talk about the fact that like, oh man, the job's going real rough, or I don't have a job, right? Because you not having a job makes you look weak.
Yeah.
Right? It makes you look inferior, makes you look incompetent as a bad provider. So you don't talk about being out of work, right?
Yeah.
You have money problems. You're not going to talk about that because again,
you're weak. You're a bad provider.
Bad provider. You know what I mean? You're incompetent.
And that's how I feel.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. And we've talked about this before. 70% of all suicides are men.
Yep.
And then compounding that, I've read varying statistics, but it seems that 60% of people who are bipolar will attempt suicide at some point in their life. Out of that, 20% succeed. So that's 1 in 5.
That's a great statistic.
Yeah. And then there's a part of me that wonders if I've made that I read that early on when I got diagnosed.
Right.
And then started worrying about it. And now I'm like, is that why it's happening? Like, did I?
Because what's it called? You inceptioned it into your brain.
Yeah, basically, I manifested.
You manifested. That's a terrible thing to manifest, Brad.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I've been like watching a bunch of videos on manifesting.
Yeah.
And I know it's all like frou-frou bullshit, but I just I need something.
It doesn't matter.
I need something.
So it doesn't matter if it's frou-frou bullshit.
So I sit down every day now. I'm doing this thing called the 3-6-9 method.
Okay.
Which again, I know is bullshit, everybody. But it makes me feel better.
And that's all that matters.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
So 3 times a day, I write my manifestation down. And the first time I write it 3 times, the second I write it 6 times, and the third time I write it 9 times.
Like at the same time? Like it's at
No.
just whenever.
Morning, afternoon, night.
Got it.
Yeah. So far, it hasn't manifested.
Fucking bullshit. Fruity foo-foo bullshit.
But I'm working on it.
I mean...
By the way, this bourbon I'm drinking is phenomenal, and it's Adam poured it, had me take a sip, and then showed me the label. Jim Beam Black Label.
Yep. Jim
So
Beam
good.
Black, Jim Beam Reserve. I was telling Brad I did a blind bourbon tasting like 10 years back, and every type of bourbon was there, and Jim Beam Black won hands down, and I get it at CVS for $19. So, you may not be a Scotch aficionado or whiskey aficionado, but $18 for a bottle of whiskey ain't bad.
That ain't bad at all.
Going back to the topic of suicide,
Do you want to sponsor this, Jim?
Jim Beam. What's up, man? So going back to the topic of that, like, let's talk about those issues, right? Like the money, the job, the relationship. Now, relationship. Like this, I'm not gonna talk about that, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a relationship that's between you and your significant other, and patching that up and working through that. That is based off of dynamics that you guys have established over years. But you do have a job that you're doing really well, which is being a father. You have 2 boys.
I mean, am I doing it well?
I think so. I've met your kids.
Yeah.
They're pretty well behaved. They're intelligent. They're inquisitive. They're courteous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, they're not, doing Doctors Without Borders yet, but you're doing a good job. You're instilling ethics into your kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, think about the way you were raised, right?
Yeah.
Now, compare yourself to your father figure. How you doing?
I mean, at least he has a job.
But think about the rest of it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, money, man, money sucks. That's also really hard to argue. But I feel like money often ties into the job, right?
Yeah.
Like we get paid hard cash for doing work, right? We go to our 9 to 5, we get paid for doing that 9 to 5. We don't get paid for being a dad. You're never going to get paid monetarily for being a dad. You will because of the amazing men you raise. That's your payment.
Yeah.
And again, that doesn't make the money problem go away. It doesn't make the relationship problem go away. But you said you want something to focus on. This podcast is a good thing to focus on. When I will tell you, man, when I'm dragging and you send me those clips, or we get some asshole comment on our YouTube page about how we don't know what masculinity is.
No, it's not us. They got really mad at our guest.
Well, that's true, because she was a woman talking about man stuff.
There would even be comments like, look at the guy's faces while she says this. And it's
Right,
like, we agreed with her.
That was kinda, I guess that was on me. I guess I didn't cut together that social media bite to reflect our...
Let them think whatever. Maybe they'll listen to the show and learn something.
Maybe they'll learn. Maybe they won't. Who knows?
But Adam pointed out that these guys had to be searching the term masculinity.
Yeah.
And then just to get pissed off.
Right. That's what I'm hoping they're doing.
Yeah.
Or they're like, I need to feel like a man today. # masculinity.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I hope that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Going back to it, man, it's like, I'm not here to rah shish kumbaya. It's like I'm not here to be your cheerleader. Because at the end of the day, if you're reliant on a cheerleader to get you through it, as soon as that cheerleader stops, rah-rahing, like you're fucked.
Yeah,
you're fucked.
Yeah,
it's like this disease. If all you do is view it from one perspective, and you never get to turn that corner and see it from another side, or you don't take a step back from it, and you can't because you're too deep inside of it, then you're never gonna conquer it. You're never gonna be able to truly fight it.
Yeah,
it's one of the reasons I think we have to laugh at bipolar, right? Because when we're in the shit, it looks impossible. But when we laugh about it, it kind of gives us that barrier we need to really evaluate what's going on and take a breath.
Yeah.
So, finding a way to, perspective, man.
It's hard, especially when you go into those states. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it today, is because people in your life who are struggling with this look like me.
Yeah.
They're laughing. They're joking. They're putting on a good face. They're having a good time. They're doing a podcast. If you have anyone in your life who's doing a podcast, they're probably high risk.
Call them right now. Just stop listening to this podcast and call those podcasts.
Yeah, because they need help.
Something's wrong. Something is horribly wrong in their life. They're crying out for help.
But yeah, I think it's easy to overlook the people in your life who. I think our stereotype of someone who's suicidal is someone who is dark and sad and maybe angry all the time.
A lot of mad, I think, goes into that, right? Like, I'm mad at the world. I'm like, I'm not mad at the world.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed in the world.
Yeah. I mean, you look at anytime you see a story about someone who has killed themselves, they always show pictures from the days before, and they're smiling and laughing.
Right.
They're at a party.
There's
they're
Jerry
doing
at
something
the office.
fun.
Yeah,
they're playing football, like whatever it is. They're having a good time, and it's because you're not walking around 24/7 thinking about killing yourself. You go into a state,
right?
And in that moment, that seems like a good idea.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful that I don't have an easy method. Like, I don't own a gun. I don't want a gun in the house. If I did, I might be gone already. Because this is an interesting thing. The number one the number one method of suicide in Britain before the 1950s was gas poisoning. Everybody had a gas oven.
Right. Yeah. You open a gas oven, close all the windows.
Yeah. And that's how they would die. In I think the 50s, they changed all the ovens. It was like mandatory. I don't know if this was countrywide or just in London. I forget. But they changed them all to electric. The suicide rates dropped by 60%.
Wow.
Because now people had to think of another method. And
right.
when you stop and have to think, how am I going to do this? And you go through the process, chances are you'll stop. And that's one of the things about, households with guns have much higher suicide rates because you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
You grab it and it's just one pull of the finger and you're over.
Yeah. You're done.
Whereas I go into these states and I'm like, okay, I could go to CVS and buy a bunch of sleeping pills. I can't get a prescription, so I'd have to do over the counter. Will that actually work, or will I end up vomiting them up because they're not powerful enough?
Because I may want to die, but I don't want to be sick.
Yeah, I don't want to throw up. I just want to go to sleep and not wake up in a hot bath. But not like full bathtub. See, these are the thoughts I have. This is how I go through it. Not a full bathtub because I don't want to start falling asleep and then drown.
Oh, okay.
So I just want like some warm water that I'm like laying in. Take some sleeping pills, no throwing up, and just like nod off, couldn't slit my wrists. Just couldn't do that. Like the idea of that like horrifies me. Just the pain.
Piercing flesh. Like I remember I was living in downtown Cincinnati, and I was dating this girl, and we were living together, and she always walked around with a knife. And that was like, and she was an attractive woman in her 20s, and that was her form of self-defense.
Yeah.
And I was always like, what about mace? What about a taser? She's like, I feel good about a knife. I could never stick somebody. I could beat you senseless with a baseball bat, and I wouldn't have any problem.
But
stabbing someone, like you're close to them. You're going in and out. Like no.
I always think that just on the topic of suicide, the what do they call it? Harikiri.
Harikiri.
Yeah. Where the samurai would stab themselves in the gut.
Also called seppuku.
Yeah, and then rip the
sword
across their stomach
so
that their entrails came out. It's like, guys, there are better ways to do this.
There's got to be a better way. Amanda and I were watching a TV show recently where someone did that, and she goes, "What's wrong with that guy?" And I'm like, actually, that was a pretty common suicide back in the Japanese era. I don't remember, like the 14th century or whatever it was.
The Romans did the same thing, except in Rome, you would have a second, and he'd stand behind you with a gladius, and if you couldn't do it, he would put the gladius down through your collarbone into your heart and lungs. Because I'd be that guy.
Right.
I'd be like, just like hovering with it. And I'm like, just fucking stab me. Like I can't.
Let me ask you this. When people, because there's a lot of different religions out there, right? That believe any number of things. That there's an afterlife. That they're going to get reincarnated as something else. Like any number of things, right?
Yeah.
Do you think the majority of people, or do you think, because a lot of religions actually poo-poo suicide, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're, I know Christianity, for instance, if you commit suicide, you don't go to heaven. I think you go to purgatory.
Because the idea is that you're gone, you can't ask for forgiveness.
Right.
But then, to me, like the loophole would be like, could you ask for forgiveness as you're doing it?
Wait a minute, are you thinking of loopholes of how to get into heaven?
Yeah. That you're like, I'm sorry for what I'm about to do, God. Please forgive me.
Right.
Like, wouldn't that count?
I guess, kind of. But he didn't. Did he give it to you? You'll never know if he gave it to you. That's the problem.
I guess.
But anyway, so I wonder if the people who do that think it's just going to be like nothing, like just silence. You know what I mean?
I don't know that they think about it because that's not something I really think about when I'm
No,
in
you
the
don't?
state. Yeah. I more think about the impact of me being gone, which sometimes pulls me back around
Sure.
to think about it. And then other times it's more the kind of fantasy that everyone would be doing better without me. And,
Right.
And you can't think of, offing yourself without thinking of like your memorial or your funeral or, things
Sure.
like that. And like, again, I've like written notes that I've left. In Gmail, you can schedule an email, and like that's what I've thought is like, well, if I do this, I'll just schedule that to go out about 2 hours after I plan to attempt it. And then I can say what I want to say to people, but nobody's going to have the opportunity to stop me.
Sure. I think resources like suicide hotlines and walk-in clinics, ERs are great resources because what it allows someone to do is take one more step before they take that last step. You know what I mean? And like you said, sometimes you're in a state, sometimes that time will bring you out of this.
Yeah, you just need that moment of reflection.
Right.
And that's again why having things on hand that you can quickly act on, I don't think is a good idea.
No, I agree.
Like if I had a gallows.
Gallows? Why would
That's
you
another
have a
one.
gallows?
I couldn't hang myself because that looks horrible.
That looks awful.
Right. It would have to be like Old West where like you drop and your neck breaks.
Right, but that didn't always happen. You
right,
just
that's
kind
true
of
too.
kicked your feet there for a while, and yeah.
That's true too.
Ugh.
If I could get an executioner.
Would you hire them? Like, would you Craigslist that? Like,
Craigslist an executioner.
You wanted a job. You wanted a job,
Yeah,
Bradley.
that's
That's
true.
an opportunity.
That's true.
That's a niche market.
That's true. I'll show up with the little black hood on.
Right.
Do you have to be shirtless?
Sure.
It's like shirtless with the black hood and
Right.
an axe,
They
right?
pay extra for shirtless.
They pay extra for shirtless.
Like, if they want to see, like, a really chiseled executioner show up to off them, they got to pay an extra $50.
They're like, hey, is that Danny DeVito?
Is Danny DeVito, when he's not filming Always Sunny, a Craigslist executioner? Mr. DeVito, if you ever want to be on our podcast, Wouldn't that be awful if this was the podcast Danny DeVito?
He listened to?
He's
Yeah.
like, we got to get on this podcast to shut this down. Oh my god! If you were a Craigslist executioner, would you buy an axe? Would you build a guillotine? What would you do?
I mean, guillotine would be the most efficient.
It would be efficient.
You could get through the most people in a day.
That's true, but then you'd have to have enough like ceiling room. You know
That's
what I mean?
true,
Like
that's
you'd have
true.
to have a hall or do it outside.
The axe you just got to keep sharp because
Yeah.
there was one of Henry VIII's wives. I forget which one it was, but the axe was dull, and so it didn't immediately take her head off, and so she started running around the yard like blood spurting out, and the executioner had to chase her and hack her to pieces.
But see, that's the other thing though. They make that look so like, oh, you just cut someone's heads off. I'm like, that's not how that works. I don't know how easy you think it is to like snap someone's neck or cut someone's head off. That's not easy to do. It's not
I mean,
like
the
a simple-
spine is a very, very
durable.
Yeah.
Very durable. Very, very durable. I'm mad at you for blindsiding me with this topic.
I knew you would be, but I thought that would be for our audience.
Yeah, no, I mean, thank you for sharing your thoughts and your feelings and your experience. I know that has to be scary for you, whether you're in the moment or out of the moment. Like, because of who you are, because you're an intellectual and you're someone whose mind never shuts off. Like,
That's the problem. My brain's going. I have 3 trains of thought at any moment going 24/7,
right.
and it's difficult to shut it up.
Yeah.
I also want to say to anyone who knows me, who's listening to this, this has nothing to do with anyone in particular.
Nope.
I think a lot of people sometimes, especially when you talk about like relationship stuff, they think like, oh, it's because of me.
Because of me, yeah.
It's because of me. And it's like, no, this doesn't have anything to do with anyone. And you also get people in your life, you always hear when someone does off themselves is like, is there something I could have done?
Right.
And there's not.
It's not.
There's nobody in my life currently or who was in my life and is out of my life currently who I think could do anything about me having those feelings.
No. Not at all. Short of restraining you, there's nothing an individual can truly do.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it would have to be is
Right.
like have the police show up and we know how that goes.
Hey, yikes.
Cops will show up because you're trying to keep them from killing me and they shoot me.
You probably shoot you, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's never anyone's fault when something awful like this happens. It's never your fault.
Yeah, it's not the person's fault. I think that's another thing is we get into blaming.
Well, because we need someone to blame.
Yeah, and you hear things like, oh, killing yourself is weak, you're giving up, and blah blah blah, and it's like, no, it's fucked up brain chemistry.
Yeah.
You remember Aaron Ralston, the guy they did 127 Hours?
Oh, the guy who fell in the crevice.
Yeah, so he fell. A boulder, he was hiking. He fell in a crevice. A boulder fell, trapped his arm.
Man,
he was
cut
stuck.
it off, right?
He cut it off with a dull pocket knife.
Good Lord.
He had to hack away at all the meat and then hack into the bone.
How would you hack through a bone with a dull pocket? I'm sorry, keep going.
Yeah. But that's how strong the urge is to survive.
Right.
For a person. We will do anything to survive, even if we have to go through some horror like that. Mm-hmm. To kill yourself, all those mechanisms have been turned off in the brain.
Right.
There is something not working right in your brain. You are a victim.
Yeah.
You are not weak. Mm-mm. You are not giving up. You are not selfish. You're a victim of this shit going wrong in your brain.
Yeah. And that's why you should seek help. Because it's not your fault. It's not because you failed to do something. It's not because you failed to live up to an expectation. Something is wrong, and you need to get help to work on it.
Yeah. And whether that's going to an ER, going to a mental health urgent care, dial 988 on your cell phone for a suicide hotline. Talk to the people around you.
Yeah.
And let them know. That was one of the first things my therapist said is don't keep this to yourself.
No. Talk about it. And you know what? Even if it's not a direct conversation about suicide, even if it's just a conversation with other people and trying to find some commiseration or some a different point of view on your current situation or on, the world at large, I would suggest doing that.
Yeah.
If you don't feel up to like Brad and I have talked about mental health a lot, and we continue to do that. And Brad was very brave to talk about this to me, to y'all. But a lot of people haven't had those conversations with their friends, with their family, with their loved ones.
Yeah.
But you can still connect with them. And maybe that's what helps you get through that phase. Because remember, that's the other thing. It's temporary. Those dips that Brad's talked about, those states, they're temporary states. We can't control how often they come or how bad they are.
I wrote on a Post-it note and put on my computer, this too shall pass.
Yeah, this too shall pass. I don't know how long it's going to take to pass.
Yeah.
I don't. And that sucks. I wish we had a crystal ball for that. But it's going to pass. Whatever shitty, fucked up thing you're going through, it's going to pass.
Yeah.
It may not pass the way you want it to. The conclusion or the resolution may not be what you want it to be. But it will pass.
And if I do ever hang myself, you have to come and put my dick in my hand so people know that I didn't kill myself. People don't think they killed myself. They think it was just an autoerotic asphyxiation accident.
Yeah, you know what?
That's what I want.
All right, here we go. We're gonna do a poll. If you would do that for your friend, please check 1. If you wouldn't do that for your friend, check 2. Roast. Brother, I don't need to say this. I hope if you ever need to talk about anything, call me.
Oh, I know.
Call me. And again, I know it's not my job to save you. That's not my job.
It's no one's job.
It's no one's job.
Yeah.
It's, you're going through your own thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you are trying your best to fight it.
Yeah.
And that's all you can do, guys, is fight.
And again, for me, and this might be the case for all of you, it's a combination of things. I don't know if it's the medication or not.
Sure.
But let's say the medication has something to do with it. I'm overwhelmed by all of these things I talked about, and my brain chemistry's fucked up.
Sure.
You throw all that into a little pot, sprinkle some cinnamon on it.
Ooh, cinnamon.
Stir it up. Maybe put a little crumble on top.
Ooh.
You get a suicide pie.
Suicide pie. I don't think that'd sell very well.
No.
I probably wouldn't.
That's one of the things, the suicide notes I wrote that are just sitting in the drafts of my email are all funny.
Well, yeah.
That's the other thing.
Of course they are.
Again, talking about they're short and they're funny. It's not a big oh, the world is against me, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I write specific people and I'm like, hey, you meant a lot to me. I just want you to know that this has nothing to do with you.
Right.
Don't cry for me, Argentina.
Nice. Nice. The truth is I have not. That's a nice little musical reference. They say a lot of suicides, they don't find a note. They don't find a note.
Yeah.
It's, writing those notes might be cathartic.
That's kind of what I was thinking about it. It freaked the fuck out of my therapist.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
She was to the point where she was considering not being my therapist anymore. Because she was like, I don't know that I'm equipped to deal with this.
Interesting.
But I don't want to just let you flounder.
She didn't recommend, or someone else?
No, I think she considered it for a moment, and then as she was talking about it, pulled back. And was like, I'm going to stick with you. But it freaked her out.
Sure.
This
is scary stuff. And if any of you are feeling this, or if any of you are experiencing these dips, this too shall pass, as Brad said. But please talk to someone about this.
988 on your cell phone.
Yep. Seek help. You are not alone in this, even though I'm sure you feel alone. I'm sure you feel like,
That's one of the things I got when I go into those states. I feel so lonely.
So lonely. Yeah.
I feel like I'm it. I got nobody in my life, nobody to talk to. But it's just me laying in a tub.
And I don't need to tell you, there are people in your life that you love. You just don't think about them. You don't feel that way.
Yeah.
People who are listening, you are loved. Brad, you are loved. There are people out there who are affected by you every day for the better. They may never tell you. You may not know who they are. But They love you. They need you. Stay strong. Keep fighting. Please.